This is Chris from Atlantic Outboard, and I'm going to do a digital delivery of our 2022 Robalo R202 Explorer. We're going to start off with the aft of the boat. The first thing that you're going to want to do is be familiar where your tilt is for the motor. This button here will give you the ability, with the battery switch on, to tilt the motor all the way up or all the way down. If you're trailering this boat, you're going to want to turn your battery switch on, which I'll show you momentarily. But then once you have your battery switch on, you're going to hit this button to tilt the motor up. This lever here is a trailer support latch. So when the boat is being transported, you're going to want this latch all the way down. It supports the weight of the motor, so all that shock is not on your hydraulics. When you're ready to launch the boat, you're going to tilt this motor up, flip this latch all the way up, and now it'll give you the ability to tilt that motor all the way down once you get the boat launched. Boarding the boat's very easy. You just lift this latch. That exposes your swim ladder. Ladder comes down. You remove the bungee. That'll allow these steps to telescope out. Once you have that done, you close this lid. Easy boarding access while the boat's either on the trailer or in the water. Let's continue moving through the boat. Once you get your boat launched in the water, the first steps are you're going to want to turn your battery switch on, which is located down here. Once the battery switch is on and the motor has power, right up here on your binnacle, there's an up and down. You'll be able to tilt the motor all the way down. Once the motor's in the down position, you're going to want to make sure your safety lanyard is engaged. It's just a horseshoe piece of plastic that slides under this button here. Once that's engaged, it'll give you the ability to start the motor. Then all you do is simply turn the key and you will be fired up, ready to go. Let's review the items on your dashboard. So at your helm, you're going to have your horn. You're going to have your navigation light switch. You'll have your anchor, a dedicated anchor switch that'll just put on the white overhead light in case this boat was ever anchored overnight. You have courtesy lights. That's going to put LED diodes on that are under the gunnel, so it gives you enough lighting to, not trip over your shoelaces, so you actually see what's going on the floor without obstructing your vision with too much light. Your raw water button, what that'll do is it'll activate your salt water pump. That'll pressurize your live well, so it'll add salt water to your live well. It'll also pressurize your salt water washdown. So one button will bring salt water to supply those two units. This is a blank accessory switch. Now these are generic panels for each boat. If you ever add a VHF and it needs a power source switch, you could wire it directly to this switch. Over on the other side, your aft bilge. Now the bilge on this boat is hardwired to the battery. So if water were to get into the bilge, the float switch would recognize that and pump the water overboard. But if you're washing up and you pour a bucket of soapy water in the bilge just to rinse it out, you can manually turn that pump on with the push of this button. Anytime that pump goes on, this red light will illuminate to notify you that that pump is running. If you're ever out in the water and you see that light illuminated for over a minute, you're going to want to start looking around to make sure there's not water in the bilge. Sometimes the bilge switch will get stuck with a piece of debris. That's easily fixed. You could spray a hose and clear that out. But if you're pumping a large amount of water, it's something to definitely take care of. There's through-hull valves in the bilge, which we'll get to next. You're going to want to close those, isolate those to resolve any leaks that may be happening. So understanding your bilge is a very important part of boat ownership. Your next switch is going to be your electronics. When this boat is purchased, we will put a GPS in here. You'll be able to give power to that GPS through this electronic switch. If the boat is equipped with trim tabs, the power to that will be on the tabs button. Not all the boats have tabs, so again, this is a generic panel. So either way, you'll have this switch. If you add trim tabs to it, you can supply the power to that switch. Again, you're going to have two blank accessory switches to add additional components to the boat down the road. You also have a charge port, cigarette lighter charge port. Your gauges here, you're going to have your Yamaha gauge. That's going to show your trim and tilt. Over on the right side, it'll show the height of the motor. Most of the time when you're running the boat, you're going to want the motor tilted all the way down. If you get one of those beautiful flat calm days, you could start to trim the motor up about halfway. That'll give you a little better performance and higher RPMs. You could cycle between the modes with the mode button and the set button. Down on the lower gauge, it's going to give you your fuel capacity. It's going to give you your trip data, miles per hour, average miles traveled. It'll give you the amount of fuel burnt, economy, and trip totals. So a lot of data can be calculated through these gauges. Very simple to use, very easy to read. At the helm, you have a tilt button. You just push that button in. If you got the tilt helm option on the boat, it'll allow you to tilt the motor, or excuse me, tilt the steering wheel to your comfort. As a standard feature, they're adding the power knob on the steering wheel. Very easy to use. I like to promote my customers to get accustomed to using that. Use your left hand on the wheel and then focus your right hand on the throttle. When you're shifting the boat in and out of gear, very simple. When the shifter is aligned with the Yamaha gate, the Yamaha sticker that's in neutral, you'll feel it click into gear. That will start to push the propeller and move the boat forward. The farther you push that, the more power it'll give you and more speed. You bring it back to neutral, and then you could push it into reverse. The farther back you push the throttle into reverse, the faster the RPM on the reverse will go. Again, it's very important to make sure your safety lanyard is engaged. The motor will not start unless you have that safety lanyard in. We do get calls every year, my boat won't start. The first thing we ask is if that safety lanyard is engaged. You have stainless cup holders here. You have a stainless grab handle for your passenger. And then this boat's equipped with the standard Clarion Bluetooth stereo. You could simply keep your phone in your pocket and play all your favorite songs. Over on this side, you have an auxiliary in. If you wanted to hardwire your stereo direct from your phone, you could do that also. We already spoke about the battery switching. You also have a footrest down below and a little additional storage. Let's take a look in the back of the boat and go through further components. I want to review some important items in the back of the boat. Any boat owner should understand what these components do and how to access them. Most of the time it's for serviceability, but again, as a boat owner, you need to know what they do and what they're for. So something that you're going to use quite a bit if you do any fishing is going to be your live well. So you simply lift up the cushion that was normally here. It gives you the ability to lift up your live well lid. Now in that live well, you're going to want to put a drain tube that'll block the water from draining out. You simply put the switch on for raw water, which we previously discussed. That'll pump that salt water into the live well. If you catch a fish, you can throw the fish in there and keep it alive until you process it at the end of the day. No need for ice and cleaning a cooler. It keeps the fish alive, and actually kids tend to get a good kick out of that. So you do have a light in there. On the spigot where the salt water is supplied, there's a little black valve. If you were to shut that valve, it would stop the water from pumping in there, but with the pump still pressurized, it'll give all that saltwater pressure now to your saltwater washdown, which is tucked over in the corner here, which we'll talk about also. So again, one pump, one switch will supply salt water to the live well and the saltwater washdown. If you want all the pressure to go to the washdown, you could shut the switch in the live well, which is on the spigot that supplies the water. Inside the live well, you have a nice blue color gel coat. Under this large cushion, if you lift that up, you have a bucket. That's a great place to keep your cleaning supplies. If you lift that bucket out, it gives you additional access to your batteries. Most of these components in the bills are serviceability for our service department. If you ever had to get to the battery, it would be done so through here. You also have access to your 10 micron Yamaha fuel filter, your primer bulb, your saltwater washdown pump, and your through-hull valves. Again, these aren't normal day-to-day things that you need to inspect or service, but it gives our service department the ability to get to these items in case they have issues. Over on the port side of the boat here, you're going to have a saltwater washdown, which we'll show you an image of. This backrest hinges up and down to give you additional access for serviceability. And then when you want to put the cushions back in, they simply fit into a groove. And then there's a retainer snap to keep them in place. Let's continue with the rest of the components in this boat. Under the gunnels on both sides of the boat, you're going to have stainless steel tow rails. Now these are excellent to actually lock your footing in. If you're fishing and there's a wave that goes by, you can actually keep your balance by locking your toes in. You also have rod storage underneath. There's a beautiful C-deck pad that protects your reels from banging against the fiberglass, and that's also the location of one of those courtesy lights which we previously talked about. Let's continue moving forward and we'll talk about other components. On the port side of the boat is your fuel fill. To access that, you simply push the button and it'll flip that fuel cap open. This is where you would put your gasoline into the boat. You also have, right under that is your speaker, one of 4 speakers in this boat. You have 2 in the cockpit area and then you're going to have 2 in the bow. Let's move to the bow and look at further components. Once you open the forward entry door to the head compartment, you can see you have the porta potty. You also have a bow table and filler. That would be dedicated stored behind the porta potty. You have a step to easily access this head compartment. There's dedicated storage for the table leg also down there. So all these components can get hidden out of the way, but they're accessible when you need them. For serviceability, our service department can remove this cushion headliner. That'll give us access behind the dash for the install to the electronics, etc. There is a drain in this space. If you were to pour a bucket of soapy water into this, it would actually run back to your bilge. That's an easy access with the forward entry. In the bow area of the 202 Explorer, you have wraparound bow seating. There will be cushions that are supplied as a standard feature that snap in. Under those cushions, you have access to storage. You just simply hit this latch and it'll spring open. It's all double insulated, and you also have a drain in there. Up front, as a standard feature, you're going to have the backrests. So the backrests simply slide in and out. Right by my leg here is where the table will mount. The way that works is this is dedicated stored in the head compartment, but when you want to put the table in, you slide this pin out and this will slide into its groove, and now it's locked in. That's the same way these backrests are going to work also. It's just a simple slide with a spring pin. Up front here you have dedicated anchor locker. This is where the dealer supplied anchor will be located. This is on a beautiful friction hinge, so once you open it, it's not going to slam down on your fingers. That's where easily access your anchor, so it's there when you need it. Let's continue around, go through more features. After a day on the water, it's recommended to flush the motor with fresh water. While you're washing the boat, you soap up the boat, take your hose, you unthread this, you take your garden hose and you thread it into this. Make sure you pay attention to this little gasket in there. A lot of times it drops in the water. It's not the end of the world. We can get you another one. It's just a standard garden hose gasket. But you're going to want to thread your garden hose into this and then turn the hose on. That'll flush water all through the exhaust passage and get all this salt water out of the motor. It's recommended that you do this every time. If you don't do it every time, it's not the end of the world, but it's very good preventative maintenance. Some customers actually equipped it with a quick connection, so you avoid unthreading it. It would just be a simple quick connect. Our parts department can look into that for you if you would like. Again, always recommended to flush after each use, but if you miss a day or two, it's not going to be the end of the world. Thanks for watching the digital delivery of the Robalo R202 Explorer. This boat is currently available. Come on down to Atlantic Outboard or visit us at atlanticoutboard.com. If you have any questions on this model or the delivery of your boat, feel free to reach out to any member of our team and we'll certainly get you the answers you need.